I'm talking about multiple universes. This is the proposition, the hypothesis that we can explain the fine-tuned universe, a universe that seems highly fine-tuned for life and for us. We can sort of explain this by saying, well, yeah, it seems unlikely by itself. If there was only one universe, then it's very improbable that you could have this kind of design or appearance of design without a designer. You can't have a fine-tuned universe without a fine-tuner any more than you can have a fine-tuned musical instrument without somebody who tuned that instrument. So the scientific way out of this is to posit, again, posit not really with empirical evidence, but posit imaginatively or mentally the notion of, well, what if there were just an infinity of universes where kind of everything happens? Maybe there's another universe where, Dinesh is a female, or another universe where Dinesh is a Democrat. So all logical possibilities are exhausted in these in this kind of plethora of universes. Now, I guess the point I want to drive home is, to me, it takes more faith to believe in multiple universes, an infinity of universes. None of these universes, by the way, that you can see or observe or for which you have one iota of evidence whatsoever. It takes far more faith to believe in that than simply to believe that we live in a universe that is fine-tuned for life and fine-tuned for us, and a fine-tuned universe implies an intelligent and very powerful, maybe not all-powerful, but seemingly all-powerful, fine-tuner. There's a principle in logic, and it's widely accepted in science, called the principle of Occam's Razor. And it means that the principle basically says that when there's a variety of possible explanations, choose the simplest one. It's almost like saying that you're trying to make your way from point A to point B, and there may be 50 different ways to get there, or 50 potential ways to get there. But if there's a straight road, that's probably the best one. Take that one. And avoid the zigzag route, both in reality on a road, but also avoid it intellectually. And let me illustrate the value of Occam's Razor with an example. Imagine if I find a coin and I start flipping it. It comes up heads. I keep flipping it, heads, 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 and I do this 10,000 times, and I get 10,000 heads. Now, there are two possibilities. I could say, A, the coin is rigged. It's not a normal coin with an equal probability of going heads or tails. It's a fixed coin. It's fixed to come up heads every time. But there's, of course, a second possibility, and that is, perhaps there are an infinite number of coins in circulation, and given infinite tossing and infinite time, one set of tosses was bound to show this otherwise implausible result. In some scenario, you could, in fact, unlikely though it may seem, get 10,000 sequential heads. Now, which of these two possibilities is more likely? The rigged coin, or the fact that there's an infinity of coins, infinity of tosses, infinity of time? Obviously, the first one makes more sense. Everybody would go for that one. So the serious objection to all theories of multiple universes is that they violate Occam's Razor. They invent a fantastically complicated set of circumstances. Why? All in order to explain one single case when there is a much simpler and more obvious explanation. The anthropic principle can, using Occam's Razor, be far more credibly explained by simply saying that, listen, we have a universe that's designed in this way because it was designed. Someone designed it. You don't need to make up 100 billion universes you know nothing about in order to account for the only one singular universe that you can possibly experience. And yet this is really what a lot of scientists do, including, by the way, a physicist I admire, Stephen Hawking. He recognizes the kind of implications of the anthropic principle. He tries to get around it, and the key to his getting around it is to, again, come up with a notion he calls, quote, imaginary time. Now, what's imaginary time? It's a time in which there's no past, no present, and no future. Time is merely seen as a kind of dimension of space. And so in his book, A Brief History of Time, Hawking uses this notion of imaginary time along with quantum fluctuations, which people love to bring in because quantum results at the microscopic or at the subatomic level are unpredictable, are contradictory, but that doesn't mean that that same quantum logic or illogic, if you will, extends to large or macroscopic objects. But by and large, in our culture today, people whenever they want to justify a result that makes no sense, they invoke the quantum. In any event, Hawking uses imaginary time and quantum fluctuations to basically say that there are multiple universes with no temporal or spatial boundaries. And you go, well, Stephen Hawking, where's the empirical evidence for it? And when and where do we see these universes? And he goes, no, we can't see them. And no, I can't tell you when, because remember, I'm talking about imaginary time, not the time that you and I experience, but some other time that apparently exists only in Stephen Hawking's head. So imaginary time is invoked to stipulate imaginary universes. So you can see how desperate the atheists are, and even the scientists, because they don't like the idea of having to bring in a supernatural force. They want everything to have a natural explanation. And this is why there is a non-atheist, it's just sort of, call it a disciplinary reason for why scientists are trying to find an explanation, a solution that doesn't make it necessary for them to invoke the specter of God.